Joining me now, the leader of the Progressive Conservatives, Patrick Brown. Good morning.
Jerry, great to be back on your show.
I am pretty sure that the complaints against it I can handle. I think what people really want to know from the Conservatives is what you would do differently. How would the budget look different if you were doing it?
Well, first of all, it would be a balanced budget, not a fictional one. There is so much different we need to do with this government. And Jerry, I know you get that. I think one of the starting points I would have is a value for money audit on the entire government, because the more I look at this government, the more examples, egregious examples of waste we see. And you name any department, I can give you examples of waste. And frankly, we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem with this government. And what they're doing is they're hiding the debt as a way to confuse the public. They put some of it, their hydro plan's not a hydro plan. It just borrows, and they put that cost on the OPG. Their infrastructure spending, they call off-budget spending, but the debt still goes up. It's all a shell game. And I think the people of Ontario want us to watch every taxpayer dollar properly. And what I mean by that is I look at healthcare, and I see these giant new LHINs where they're hiring 78 new executive vice presidents, more bureaucracy at the expense of frontline care, more paper pushers. The last thing we need in healthcare is more paper pushers when we can't even afford nurses.
Would you cancel that if you became premier?
I would absolutely cut the fat administrative spending in healthcare. Do I think we need 78 new LHIN vice presidents? Absolutely not. I would immediately stop that. We don't need more paper pushers. I look in Hydro. You want something I'd cancel right away? I'd cancel the Bad Contracts Act. I look at the Green Energy Act. We overpaid by $9.2 billion so far, and we're still doing it. Jerry, we're spilling water power every day. Merrickville, Manitou, Niagara Falls. We're charging Ontarians to give it away. We're giving it to Pennsylvania and New York, and we're charging Ontarians for it. So something I want to cancel, I want to cancel the Green Energy Act, which has been an unmitigated disaster.
Okay, let me ask you a question about that. I mean, I'm encouraged by what you said. We do know that canceling contracts can get very expensive. We saw that with the hydro plants that were going to be built and then not built, et cetera. And I doubt whether they have shown you the contracts.
Well,
so how do you know for sure that canceling the contract would end up being cheaper for us than the contracts we have for wind, et cetera, that kind of thing?
So, Jerry, a few great points there. They will not share the major contracts. The 30 mega contracts that they got $1.3 million in donations from, which is a scandal in itself. Energy we don't need, they benefited, the Liberal Party did. We have only one copy that they accidentally leaked to us, the Samsung deal. They accidentally released it on a different release. On that, there was an exit clause for $1.5 billion of surplus electricity that we could have taken. If similar provisions exist in the other contracts, we could be out of all our surplus energy. But it's not just the old contracts. They keep signing new ones, Jerry. Knowing that we don't need it, they keep on signing new ones. The day after their Fair Hydro plan or the borrowing plan, they proceeded with 1,100 more. They're about to proceed with LRP2. And if the notice to proceed has not gone out, you can cancel it with almost minimal cost. And I have to say, why do they keep signing these deals? Is it because they're their friends, their supporters, their financial benefactors? Something smells in the province of Ontario that we're continuing to purchase and sign contracts for energy we do not need, and we're giving away to our competitors in the U.S. It stinks, and I'm going to stop it.
Okay, the NDP would do pretty much a universal drug plan. In the budget that came out yesterday, the Liberals have promised a drug plan, which actually sounds better than it is, because for a lot of the people under 25, they're already covered in one way or another anyway. What would you do with that?
Well, Jerry, how about means testing? I look at Justin Bieber. He would qualify under their plan. He's worth, $200 million plus or growing. He'd get free coverage under them. But what irritates me about this photo op they're doing on a drug plan, we already have 7 drug benefit plans that they run, and they're not running properly. So now they're going to create an 8th plan. And with no means testing, what that means, you've got millionaire kids who are going to get their drugs covered. But when you look at rare disorders, you look at orphan patients, they get no help. I think of the Maddie Vanstone, who wasn't going to be covered. I think right now there's a new drug for cystic fibrosis approved by Health Canada, but it's not available in Ontario. It will not be covered for a person who can't afford it in the province of Ontario, but a millionaire's kids is going to get their drugs covered.
So you would cancel this program if it were in place and the next election you one, I'm talking to Patrick Brown, leader of the Progressive Conservatives, you would cancel this thing that they announced yesterday.
I'm going to fix the drug benefits in Ontario. What I mean by that is I'm not going to be subsidizing drugs for millionaire kids. I'm not going to be paying for Justin Bieber's drug access. For millionaires, I'm not going to be paying for their drugs. I'm going to make sure those that actually need it are the ones we take care of. I think of the Maddie Vanstone out there, that 12-year-old who was on life or death, who wasn't going to live unless she got help. Those are the people that I want to fight for. Okay,
John Tory is not happy. I think that up till now he has tried at least publicly to look as though he can get along with Kathleen Wynne. He may have started to give up on that. He feels that this budget abandoned Toronto. Do you think that that's fair, and what would you do for the city?
So I think John has made some very legitimate concerns. I think he's right to be upset. So let's talk about his two big concerns. On Toronto Community Housing Corporation, he expected help. You know, they could save $6.2 million a year simply by buying natural gas at the City of Toronto rates instead of being forced to buy under the province's scheme. That would save $6.2 million. The city has asked for it. The province has rejected that. I think that's a fair request. The other thing that council has put forward is people who are evicted from social housing, jailed, so prisoners who are convicted, so convicted criminals, when they get released, they automatically get a spot. And the provincial Liberals insist this is appropriate. City Council has argued it isn't. Frankly, I agree with City Council that it's outrageous. I don't know why the province continues to obstruct Toronto's request on that. On infrastructure, remember, Jerry, at the beginning of the interview, I was talking about value for money.
Yeah.
We're spending $190 billion on infrastructure over the next 13 years. Yes, Kathleen Wynne's making spending promises for 2030. But on that value for money, the Auditor General did a report that didn't get a lot of attention, and it said in December we could be seeing cost overruns of 35%. We were repaving a road on the 403 every 2 years instead of every 15 years. You know, we had companies getting contracts to build things like bridges. They had no history in doing it wrong, because we don't actually monitor results. We don't monitor, are you getting value for taxpayer dollars? So the culture I want to bring to Queen's Park is we're going to make sure every dollar that people pay in taxes gets spent appropriately. And there's no better example of how it's wasted than I look at infrastructure. So when John Tory says he's not seeing help on infrastructure, he's right, because it's being wasted by a government that does not monitor what they spend.
Patrick Brown, leader of the Progressive Conservatives, thanks very much.
My pleasure.